Hi there. How are you doing? The light's not good. Let me turn on the light. Hold on one second. I'm in my kitchen. Okay. So I was thinking about, actually, Kara and I were talking about the Grade Translator. So here we are. The seventh grade curriculum is hopefully going to be executed this year by all of us. And of course, the idea is that we have the kids actively writing and reading. Now, arguably, the only good thing that came out of brain frames for me anyway was this one statement. And the statement was, reading is thinking guided by print, which really is sadly true. I hate to give them credit, but it is true. So based on the workshop we all sat in with Kate Roberts, the idea, of course, is that let's just keep it simple, right? And so if we're going to keep it simple, most of us are probably going to do homework around the lines of reading. For her suggestion was reading for a half an hour a night, and then 2 to 4 jots, right? And then those jots, she talked about grading the jots. So I quite honestly don't have a plan for how to grade that step yet, right? But Karen and I did meet because she's doing the sixth grade stuff and I'm doing the seventh grade stuff. And I did make a template. I don't know if this is my chicken scratch. I have this, there's a digital version of this. So the top has the criteria. She kept it simple with 1, 2, 3. The quantity of the work the kid did. So this is a glorified reader's notebook check. You practice what I taught, and then organization. So it's just those 3 quick categories. You're not reading every single word that every single kid writes. You're doing this glorified check of some kind, and that template is listed in a folder somewhere that I can give you. Okay, so I kind of started at the end in order to start thinking about a grade translator for something like Reader's Notebook, right? Because you can't necessarily grade the quality of the work because kids are going to write volumes and volumes, and some kids are just going to do, of course, the minimum. And so I guess this is a way of giving a grade for something like that. The second thing I did, I took the special education read, the first one, because I took a book that a kid wouldn't necessarily be reading or would be reading in a book group or would be reading independently, right? Because my understanding of the homework is that if it's 30 minutes a night, it doesn't matter if it's a class read, because we're still doing a couple of those, I think, or a book club read, or a book of their choice, right? Maybe there's still room for that. I don't really know. Okay. So I took that, and I'm sorry that my book, some of you might be reading this too, because there's 3 books that we're supposed to read for the special ed PDPs. So I took this because it's a young adult novel and I had to read it anyway. So I apologize for not being able to show either you or the students what my Post-its would look like if I were in the book. But I was on my way home on a plane from Seattle, and I didn't really want to do this on the plane. So this is my last year's reader's notebook that I was creating examples for students. And I was trying to show, this was the lightning thief. I was trying to show what student thinking might look like, right? And so this is the one from rules. And so what I was wanting to show you and the students, and I took my camera, I left it at school, like the one that shows my desk, that Abby was nice enough to get us, or Central Office was nice enough to get us. So I took the Post-its that I found and I tried to model for the students what that might look like. So there was thinking in my jots, and there was thinking beyond my jots, and that hopefully would expand into my reader's notebook. So I was just attempting to show us, I guess, by example, what might be the next steps. So if you have any ideas on how we can quantify the jots, that would be great. Kate talked about that, giving some kind of participation or homework grade. I kind of honestly don't feel that strongly about it. I feel like that if you do something like this weekly, like most of us have 5 groups. And I talked to Kara about this too, because I met with her, in a Google Meet halfway to be she's my accountability partner, right? Because they were doing this in 1 or 2 sixth grade classrooms. So it's like it was really manageable to manage 1 or 2 classrooms of readers or writers notebook. But for Alex and I, the numbers are pretty high next year. There's 100 kids. There's one of you. You're learning a new curriculum. Is that reasonable in terms of your time expectations, even when you're willing to work hard and do the work, right? And so is it possible, like, would it make sense for you to have, if you have 5 groups, there's 5 days in a week, you're doing a reading check per group, so it's perhaps easier to fly through 15 or 20 readers' notebooks to do some kind of check in a day than 100. That's a daunting task as a way perhaps of keeping them accountable. And that's like a weekly grade, right? And then we also talked about continuing with the Google Form sort of reading comprehension quiz, which seems simplified, but really not when you think about it, because I also think that keeps them honest, because I don't know if you remember this list, also from Kate Roberts. I actually took really good notes during this, amazingly. I didn't think I was paying attention, and here I was. So she talks about sort of this hierarchy of thinking and comprehending. And so a Google Forms quiz that keeps them accountable to the content really is sort of part of this, because she talks about monitoring for sense, reading for fluency. That was largely related to tone and rhythm, envisioning or visualizing. And only after they do these 3 steps, which is your glorified reading check and a Google Forms quiz, what happens next, sequence of events in the story, etc., then they can start to do the reader's notebook piece, the thinking about reading in print thing, where they're thinking about the characters, inferring, interpreting themes, analyzing craft, reading with a critical lens. That's her list. And they're not going to get here until they get here. And those Google Forms quizzes will help them do that. And we all have ones that I think we've generated that we can then twerk. What is the word I'm looking for? Twerk. Wait, tweak. Twerk. We're not doing that. To help with the grade as well, right? Because so Kara and I's goal for the curriculum was around a grade translator. So not only am I going to create a totally cheesy graph, which is a glorified reading check, my next step in sort of working backwards is figuring out how we're going to give a homework grade, right? If the reading is 25 to 30 minutes a night and those jots, right? And then the jots end up here, and the jots end up being the weekly homework grade perhaps, or bi-weekly, reader's notebook grade. Then how do we do the jots? And I don't have an answer for that, but I just wanted you to know that I was working on it. I don't know. So I hope that helps a little bit. To be honest with you, I have a hard time delineating between what it means to be a writer that's reading and a reader that's writing. To me, they're pretty enmeshed. I don't know. I just don't see a huge difference between them. I understand the difference between teaching a kid the narrative essay and the art of argument. Like, I get that. But I'm having a hard time making that distinction for them, I guess. For me, I guess as a teacher, my bias is that I'm a much better writer about literature. So to me, reader's notebook is a just much more comfortable place for me to be than the writer's notebook, where I'm generating ideas and stories, because I don't feel like that's an area of strength for me as a writer. So to be honest, it's harder for me to model, because I'm not really that interested in my own characters. I'm interested in analyzing the characters of others. So I guess that's where I'm at in terms of what I'm modeling and how I'm modeling. And I've started reading Legend, which I do really like. I love Marie Lu. And then this rules book as well. And then I'm rereading Ground Zero with one of my sons. That flipped narration I do really like, and I think it can work really well, especially if it's a companion novel for the narrative essay unit. But I also still like 96 Miles for that, because J.L. Espelin is not a super sophisticated writer, but I actually think that's a relative strength, because it makes her much more accessible. So that is my summary thus far. Hope things are going well. Have a good day.